So today we're going to discuss, anyway, what camera movement we call it, which is a kind of broad, big topic, but we're going to kind of go through it and talk about, sort of the style and the history and the future and what that means for all of us. So, and then we're going to start with some kind of the, more terrestrial-oriented friends, so we're not flying around, and then we're going to bring in our friends from the air. The SOAC is here, so Society of Aerial Cinematographers too. So we're going to bring them in and talk about a little bit of aerial. So we'll switch it up and we'll go for a little bit while and play it by ear a little bit. So introduce my panel, and a great panel of DPs, operators, etc. I have Charles Papert here, DP, Director of Photography. He's actually currently working on Key and Peele on Comedy Central. Great show, love the show, fantastic show. But also, history of Steadicam operation, would you say?
Yes.
So
along one of those.
One of those too. Back in the day, ER, all that stuff. I just have an ER clip that I want to show, so just as a point of view. I don't know if you even did it. But
probably not mine.
Oh, it's okay though.
Hopefully not mine. Yeah.
Probably Guy B.
I'm sorry. Let me just pull up this one. Okay, separate out. Kenji Lester. There's Kenji. Hey, Kenji. Kenji's a long-term operator, Steadicam, and you have a list of films and TV shows that goes on for a long time.
I've been around.
Steadicam galore, everything in between, right? So, welcome, Kenji. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Rich Moriarty. Here he is, AC and MoVI cam extraordinaire, MoVI operator extraordinaire. Taught me everything I know on the MoVI. Probably most things I know on the MoVI, I would say. Probably. Yeah. And you've run tons of movies, tons of different things, commercials, shorts, everything else, right? So, well, in particular, we'll go through. And then Chris McKechnie, MoVI operator, DP, and endless hours on set. This guy has got a lot of experience and comes in with a different angle too. So we have a group of operators here and a DP. And I guess to this group, the questions I have are kind of oriented about intent more than the tool, and then some tool stuff too, because I think we're all interested in tools, and here we are at a place that sells tools. But I'm really interested to hear from you guys and, a little bit more on why you choose, especially from a DP's point of view. Like what camera movement, this kind of generic term for moving the damn camera around a little bit, adds to it. If you look back in the history of filmmaking, certainly the first films didn't move all that much. In fact, they were fairly static, and obviously we've gone a long way past that. But I guess we start off just saying, what did something like, obviously we had a dolly, a long time, but what something like the Steadicam add? Intent-wise as a director of photography or intent-wise as an operator, what does that add to the shot, right? So a tool like this, and Gimbals too, so we can all chime in, what does that add? I mean, why are we doing that? And it's a broad question, but I mean, if you could think of an example to me of how a shot can change based on a movement, that's the interesting thing to me, and how you change intent, how you change a feeling within that shot. So, I mean, that's a broad question, but, maybe you can take a stab at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Take a stab.
Jump in.
So, film being a motion medium, a moving medium, of course, film now is digital for the most part, what we're able to contribute over something like photography or paintings is the sense of motion, the sense of carving through space. Mm-hmm. Which is so amplified by camera movement that it becomes almost a 3D effect without 3D. Yeah. That you're able to take the viewer on a little journey, that they can go around a corner to discover something, or they have the dynamic of moving either with a person or with an object, or countering them to create a whole different feeling. So it becomes a whole vocabulary of the moving camera, which creates a lot of viewer interest and dynamic. Sometimes it can add a dynamic to where there hardly is any, which is often used and misused. And anyone who operates a moving camera has certainly had directors say, we don't know what to do here. Let's just throw it on X and Y device to get the camera moving to add some eye candy, which is pretty legitimate because it's entertainment value. It creates some excitement and interest. The Steadicam was born out of one guy, Garrett Brown, who 35 years ago said, I want to move a camera, I don't want it to be shaky, and I don't want to be tied down to this 800-pound dolly to just to move something 2 feet. So he identified that problem and then solved it with a Steadicam, where you're able to move fluidly, not distract the viewer with unwanted motion. And one of the most exciting things about it was that it was purely contained within one operator's ability. Same as handheld. Handheld was very freeing and liberating, and the French New Wave was a major change to cinema when it happened, and then it was literally only about 5 years later the Steadicam happened. And that was the status quo for many years in terms of body-mounted cameras. And of course, meanwhile, cranes evolved into remote heads, and aerials became more stable. So there was a lot of stuff going on above, but on the ground level, Steadicam was sort of it for those 30 years if you didn't want to, throw it on your shoulder and have a shaky look. So what's interesting now, of course, is that the MoVI and the other gimbals have come along to create a new vocabulary where suddenly cameras are able to get into places they never could before. They're able to transition in ways they never could before. So we're sort of seeing a new development where you can now have a camera transition from any place to any other place. That the dead zones that used to exist, where you go, well, like Steadicam, I can do 3 feet of movement, and above that's a crane, and the tallest crane is this tall, so now they need to go to a helicopter, but a helicopter can fly this low. But now that's filled in with drones in the middle, if the FAA plays ball.
We'll talk about that a little. Yeah.
And MoVI's and the gimbals somewhere in between that.
That's interesting. That's an interesting talk. Going from all the way from the bottom up. And interesting. Yeah, you could do different things now with these tools. Yeah.
And ultimately, what it's about is getting the lens exactly where you want it at every moment in time with the least amount of effort and money possible.
Right. That's true. Thanks.
I'm done. Thanks a lot.
Mic drop. Wow, that was really good. Well said. Well said, sir. Kenji, what do you think?
It's, from an operating standpoint, these are all tools.
Yeah, of course.
And what we're all trying to do is tell a story. Yeah. That's why filmmakers make films. It was another way of telling stories beyond a book, a painting, or a verbal story. And a lot of people just use the tools just because it's cool. Charles can tell you. It's like back in the old days when they just hire a Steadicam guy for one day to come in and do one shot, then the next thing you know, you're the human tripod and you're doing everything because they realize that they're 3 hours behind and, we won't, use the dolly. We won't use standard, set of sticks. We'll just keep it on Steadicam and you'll just walk around and get all the shots. And what it ends up looking like is some guy's been suited up for 18 hours, walking around getting a bunch of static shots. But that's one thing that young filmmakers, all you guys, should think about is these are tools. Don't use it because you got it and it's cool. Use it to help tell the story, because that's what we're all trying to do is tell a story. And a lot of that gets lost. And you got to figure out, what will tell this story the best way? And being a camera operator, it's not because I'm the lazy sack of crap when I tell people, this will look better on a dolly. This would be a more interesting shot if we went on the other side of the set, went long lens and carried these people on diagonal track move instead of just doing that 2-person, medium walk and talk and put them into an elevator. Or something like that. It's think out of the box. A dolly's a great thing. Use it. Sticks are a great thing. Everything has its application. Just because you have a techno crane doesn't mean you have to keep on doing all your coverage with the techno crane, because now you got the 500-pound gorilla you're trying to maneuver.
Literally, yeah.
And
More than that, probably.
In a small room trying to do all your coverage. One of the smartest things people can do is get off of the Steadicam. Get out of, unless it really calls for it. And there's nothing wrong with being handheld. Handheld's a great thing. Sometimes Steadicam just isn't what that shot calls for. Maybe it's a handheld shot.
Well, handheld obviously, but it changes the intent to the look of it, the feel of it. Obviously, Steadicam has one. Mm-hmm. And yet, right? You shouldn't be using it like you're saying. I think you're saying you shouldn't be using it just because it's easy. You got it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's intent. You're trying to tell a story. And if you're telling it, and the way this tool that we use, the tools that we have, they can alter that story.
You look at something like Blade Runner,
right,
which was making the rounds on cable a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of that, chase sequence was handheld. People think it was Steadicam. No, Steadicam. There's no Steadicam in them. It was all handheld or on dollies or cranes. And what would that scene would have looked like if it were on a Steadicam? Would have given it a whole different feel to it. What would the keeping with Kubrick kind of stuff? What would some of those shots in The Shining look like if they were handheld or on a dolly? Would have been a whole different feel, a whole different vibe for that movie. Now, sometimes that's the only way you can get the shot. I remember doing a shot on a picture in Bulgaria. It's the opening of the picture. It was Steadicam shot going through a museum. That's the tool that really made sense for that shot. Then the shootout happened. It was a lot of handheld, a lot of crazy stuff after that. But, it's all different tools we have, because we're all filmmakers, to help tell the story.
So, Rich, based on that, and and thinking about the tools and what they do and the intent that they bring, I mean, yeah, it's a tool. Obviously, it's about the story. With your experience, how are these things added to the storytelling? How are they added? When you with a movie or any other tool, you've used a variety.
Sure.
How is that added, or how has that got you a shot that you couldn't get before?
Well, I think just to reiterate what Kenji's saying, the right tool, feedback, the right tool for the right shot.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm falling into what Garrett and other people ran into when they first started Steadicam, and Kenji says, "Oh, just go ahead and just put you on Apple Box, go into your lock off." Just because the tool's there doesn't mean you have to use it for that. Now, the shots I've gotten that we couldn't get with another tool, and quickly is, I was telling somebody earlier, is we were on a bridge, and we're, 100-foot long bridge, and we're in the middle of that, and the DP and the director wants to do a shot where we follow the detective's point of view off the bridge, drop it off a bridge, have somebody pick it up at the bottom of that bridge, and then walk it into a tight shot of the face.
Right.
Well, and can we do a Steadicam? Well, no, that's a giraffe step off. I don't know anybody's going to counterweight a giraffe for a step off. So it's one of those shots where that tool was specific for that shot, accomplished it magnificently, and gave us the ability to hold a stabilized shot coming down off the bridge, a second operator grabbing it at the bottom, walking smoothly into a tight shot of a dead guy's face on the ground. Handing it through tight spaces. We were on a cruise ship where we wanted to get a shot in the galley, and in a galley in a cruise ship, there's a 2-foot by 2-foot square opening between the servers and the cooks. And they want to do a shot where we come follow a cook, then pass off to the server, and then follow the plate of food going out to the people in the restaurant. Well, nothing else would have fit through that little hole. So we were able to do a handoff with a MoVI through that. But then again, once we get into the restaurant area, go back to the dolly, go back to the sticks. Don't have me stand up here and try to hold off a lock-off short, or do those small creeps. They want to do a slider move with a MoVI.
Yeah.
I'm not that smooth. It's like I can't be a dolly.
You're not Ted O'Crane either.
Exactly. I can't pull that off. So at that point, get me off the MoVI, go to the dolly, go to the a slider, go to something else that'll accomplish that shot, and not. It's a tool. It's not a one-all, fix-all, be-all. Mm-hmm. It's a tool for specific shots that will accomplish those very well, but understand what they do. And as filmmakers, as Kenji and Charles said, you have so many tools available to you. Use them all.
Yes.
Use them, and use the right tool for the right shot.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think? See if they're pontificating over there. I can tell. Yeah.
I think. With these tools, they've added flexibility on set. So, much like these other guys have mentioned, you can more quickly get shots that you couldn't ever before. But you have to learn how to use that flexibility or use those tools appropriately. So, whether it be a MoVI or aerial or, tripod, dolly, use them all, but use them all to your advantage and to help, again, tell the story. It's just kind of, these guys have said it all, and so I think the MoVI has kind of revitalized the industry and allowed people to kind of, throw viewers in set or on set. I think a lot of the shows now, features, whatever, Most of the shots, the camera is moving some way, somehow, whether it be handheld or slow track, or you're doing the Steadicam shot. I think it's putting the viewer into the scene more with at least just a little bit of movement. I think a lot of the shows are going away from just lock-off stuff. I don't particularly like lock-off stuff, but again, there's a calling for that too. So again, you just have to learn how to use the tools to your advantage.
Charles, on that note and on the group's note, for Key and Peele, I watched the show, but I can't say that I've seen. I can't quote a specific scene of the ones I just think are really funny. I remember them being funny, but I don't remember.
Why not?
I don't remember the shots per se. I should do. I was like,
Of course.
I mean, what's a fun thing you did? What's something you had fun with? I mean, coming from a background of moving and obviously having that vocabulary, as you said, what's something something you're proud of and fun that you did recently that you can speak to? I mean, you don't have to have a clip. We can just talk about it, but obviously.
Right.
Something to that.
Everything we do on King Pill is really fun, by the way.
Yeah,
It's probably the best job I'll ever have because we shoot 2 different sketches a day, so I change gears twice a day, and I'm shooting a different kind of movie. But actually, it's going to dovetail what I was thinking, that Rich and Chris were talking about, was to step back, and then I'll roll into that question, which is I think the important thing that we're all sort of touching on is that camera motion should come out of intent and design.
Yes, yeah.
That there's a reason to move the camera at any given moment and should always be addressed. Is this the right time to move the camera or not? And what kind of motion should it be? What speed should it be? Should it be fluid or should it be shaky? What's the emotion of the scene? And there's so many decisions to be made at that point once you start to move a camera that it's only something that comes over time and experience and getting to the edit and going, I wish we'd gone a little slower. I wish we had stopped the camera at this point to just breathe it in, or we had a static shot to fall back to. It really becomes about the whole energy of the scene and ultimately the whole piece that you're shooting. And one of the tricky things about being handed the keys to the kingdom, so for instance, with a gimbal stabilizer, there's a percentage of people who are getting to do stabilized shots that didn't get to before because Steadicam was either too expensive or too elusive because it's a longer learning curve. They might have picked up a GlideCam 4000 and played with it and gone, this doesn't look that great, I'm not going to use it that much. Now they go, wow, I picked this thing up and within a short period of time I'm doing beautiful shots. Then there's the period that many people will go through, which is, now I want to use it for everything. Why wouldn't I? And Steadicam operators early on get giddy about using it and want to sell it for everything. And that doesn't ultimately serve the material that you're shooting particularly well. I know as a younger operator, I was pitching shots left and right. There were these elaborate oneers. Yeah. And I've already seen...
That was the clip, the ER clip was the oneer. The big, like, Quentin Tarantino oneer that went on forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah, there was many of those. And ER kind of pioneered that. And there was a period where that was great, and then it sort of faded out.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are kind of re-entering a phase of, at least at a certain level, which I would say is I don't know, what do you have a name for what you call the large market now that was prosumer, that's now sort of merged into something else?
Independent filmmakers?
Sure, we'll call them independent filmmakers, yeah.
There you go, yeah. That's good. It's
guys making movies out of their garage.
Sure,
or any level. It's just it became from this very small group to this massive group between.
That now having the opportunity to create these incredible long moving masters, we'll be seeing a lot more of those in the years to come. And as always, the cream will rise to the top, where there'll be a few amazing shots and a lot of ones that are pretty boring. Because to design an interesting shot is many times more complicated than a short, interesting shot. It becomes a series of points where you go, well, here's A, and here's B, and here's C, and those are all great points, but to get between A and B and make it interesting, there may be some dead space in there where nothing's really going on. And that becomes up to the skill and experience and artistry of generally the operator. I mean, I think it's the director or the DP, but should be really the operator, to go, what would be great is instead of just dragging the camera from A to B, what if it becomes a curve? What if we put a piece of action over there to distract the viewer, to hide that kind of dead spot? And that ultimately is what can transform a long shot into a worthwhile long shot. Because ultimately, you have to ask yourself during one of those shots is, should we keep moving or should it just cut to another vantage point? Is there a reason to keep hinging between two people talking rather than just cut between those two people talking? Gosh, the most classic, I think, Steadicam shot, the most iconic, I think many people agree, is the one from Goodfellas,
Yeah.
where they go through
original,
the
yeah.
basement of the
Yeah.
Copa.
It's the one, yeah.
Sure, it's an amazing shot.
Yeah.
What is fascinating about that shot is most of it takes place on the backs of two people walking away from you,
Right, the whole time, yeah.
which is not the most interesting place to be most of the time.
Yeah. It's
but
all the peripheral that you're looking at.
it's the peripheral.
Yeah, yeah.
And Larry McKechnie, who operated that shot, was solely responsible for making that shot interesting.
Yeah.
Scorsese said, follow these guys into the club. And the operator, Larry, designed all these little bits of business that happen on the edges of the frame and people standing there that the actors can turn around and respond to. And each corner that he takes is different. One great piece of trivia about that shot, which I know you know, is that, how many of you are familiar with the shot I'm talking about? Just so okay, enough. And everyone else should go watch it if they can on YouTube.
It's the first shot, Goodfellas.
It's a primer on camera movement.
Yeah.
They walk through a kitchen on their way through to the main part of the club. If you go and watch that shot, you'll see that if the actors had continued in a straight line down the hall they were in, instead of turning into this kitchen, they would have entered the club immediately. They go into a kitchen, they take 4 right turns, and come right back out the same door that they came in. They make a circle. Yeah. Now, the reason that no one notices this, and I honestly didn't notice it for a good 10 years, is because each turn that's taken is operated a different way, is designed a different way. The camera lingers at one corner. It hinges with the actors on another. Things are being passed around, and that's all by design. With many lesser operators at the helm, that would be just a shot of following people, and you, as the viewer, you would sense, I'm just going in a circle. Why is that happening? Yeah. So a great amount of this, of moving the camera, is about having an intent, following through with it, and having the courage to say, you know what, this shot isn't that interesting. We need coverage, we need to cut it up, or we need to, I've gotten to a point where I'm stuck. It should jump back here and continue, make it better, yeah.
A good AD it's worth its weight in gold, especially a good second AD.
Yeah, which is the design background, help you with business like that. And then just to go back to your question very quickly, Key and Peele, we are a comedy series, and I'm very conscious of how movement affects comedy. Movement is a is a standard tool in the dramatic world. We have push-ins for emphasis. A lot of shows will do the shaky cam look to keep it interesting and build tension. In comedy, generally, they're not shot with that same kind of motion. Now, Key and Peele, we're lampooning a lot of dramatic styles, so we kind of incorporate that.
You take on the style of what you're lampooning, right?
Exactly.
Right.
But at some point, it turns into a joke, and I'm very conscious of how camera movement can actually hurt a joke if it's done at the wrong time in the wrong place. Coming to a dead stop and letting a beat become awkward, or letting the actors have room to play without kind of being up and moving around them is a very critical factor in my decision-making process. And I will say to directors, are we hurting the joke by moving the camera here? And we address that. We did have one sketch recently that was about 60 seconds long. It's a single joke. It's a quick in and out. And it starts with a guy in a dentist chair being put under by the dentist. And the dentist leaves the frame, and the camera does this big 180-degree plus arc around on a dolly as he's being knocked out, and the guy sits up into frame because it didn't work, and he goes, "Hey doc, I'm not asleep," revealing the dentist is now stripped down to like this domination gear with a ball gag in his mouth, and he goes, "Well, I had fun being a dentist," and just sort of scuttles out of frame. And the whole thing revolves around it happening in one shot, that you kind of go, wait a second, 5 seconds ago he was dressed as a dentist, how did that happen? Yeah. Of course, off camera was an amazing array of wardrobe people going pulling Velcro outfits off them, but the camera movement was part of the joke. It was in on the whole design of the scene, and would have not been as funny if it played on cuts.
Yeah, that's great.
Long-winded response, I'm sorry.
I love. Well, it was very, very interesting. I mean, I love the ball gag reference. There you go.
Yes, I know you do, Andy.
Bring it up. We're on the same page there. I mean, same question for you. I mean, fun shots. Basically, I mean, you had recently.
Fun shots, or the whole
interesting shots.
Or the fact that they keep on making us move the camera for no reason on TV shows while you're doing coverage, and it's really not adding anything.
Not so fun
except
shots.
The director keeps on. Well, we need to keep it alive, so just keep on moving the camera.
That's the opposite
just,
of what
tank slap. Just mow the lawn. Just go back and forth, back and forth, and it's like.
Speaking of a shot that's hard to do in the movie, the mow the lawn shot, right? I mean, I watched these guys who do cover. We did a lot of concert coverage.
Yeah.
On the Steadicam, back and forth, all day long, right? Not the best for the movie, I would have to say.
Yeah.
But because you just get tired. But yeah,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of that.
No, and a lot of times director will come up, yeah, this scene, and I've had directors say this. This scene's, just kind of dull, not really well written, so we need to make it more exciting. So just go handheld or just keep moving the camera for no reason. And I'm just thinking,
They say for no reason.
write better scripts.
Try
it's
that, yeah.
why it's above my pay grade to make this scene better because, you're the guy who's supposed to be the genius here. And no, I mean, favorite shots, there are all kinds of, there's so many.
Yeah.
Because every shot I do is great.
Good answer.
Or as one director, described, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I went, okay, we could do that. He goes, well, isn't that good? I'm like going, oh, I'm sorry. That was great. So for the rest of the day, every time he suggested for me to do anything, he said, best idea ever. So the next day, he pretty much got the fact that, I'll just let me do my job, and I'm not going to get excited and kiss your ass for every suggestion you give me. But no, there are a lot of fun things. I mean, I was on a show called Franklin and Bash. Just nothing TNT show. But Patrick Cady, ASC, I have to give a plug to the cinematographer I've been working with for the last few years. Great guy. Please hire him. Any producers out there, please hire him. Rarely available, but great guy. He took this job. It's just Franklin and Bash, TNT, wacky lawyer show. So we get there, and they just said, make it look nice and interesting. And we looked at it and said, okay. We did so much wacky stuff, but it helped tell the story. Doing masters on a 14 millimeter lens in this conference room, just picking the most static shots or even some stuff that was moving.
Well, that's a really good point. I think that's the question. How much freedom do you have? You said the operator makes the shots a lot of times. How much freedom do you guys have when you, often you...
It all depends.
That depends on the cinematographer relationship, I'm guessing.
Or the director.
Yeah.
Or what the director wants.
The director wants, yeah. How much...
Well, see, we talk about freedom. Now, I have the unique perspective of being with this new tool, the MoVI, from its inception to the other. So freedom for me is kind of fun because they just say, well, what does the tool do? Well, it can do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want to do. Well, think of something. Okay. So I'll drop it out of a 4-story building, follow the building down, and we had a phone conversation from somebody on the 4th floor to the 2nd floor, and they want to not intercut the two, but actually kind of marry the two. Okay, so we'll pull out the window, we'll drop down the building, someone will be on the 2nd floor, we'll grab it in, we'll bring it in, show that person talk, we'll hopefully bring it back up to the 4th floor, pull it back in the window.
Yeah. Normally a big crane required, yeah.
Or not. How are you going to stick it through a window?
Yeah.
It's like it's a shot that when you get a chance to show a tool like what it can do that nothing else can do, well, that's when it gets to be fun. Then it's like that. So my freedom will slowly go away as people become more educated with the tool. Then they're not going to ask me so much of go have some fun. They're going to tell me what to do again.
Yeah. Same thing happened with Steadicam.
Exactly.
Same thing happened with the Technocrane.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's going to happen again.
It just becomes a tool.
Right.
Right. And I anticipate those days are coming sooner than later. But what I enjoy about the gimbal setups is the freedom it gives to directors and DPs. Being a focus puller for 20 years, it gets mundane. I pulled a 2,000 mil lens. Okay, that was exciting, a little fun, but it's still focus pulling. Well, now when you get into this kind of aspect of it, and you sit down, and I do a demonstration for a director and a DP. Instance in Jamaica, I was in a hotel, and the DP looked at the rig and saw carbon fiber, and he saw a rig and went, "Go, we're not going to use that." And I said, "Okay, boss, tell you what, go to your hotel room, have a quick beer, give me an hour to get everything unpacked, and let me just show you the tool." So he goes up for an hour. I call him back downstairs, and all I did was run down a lobby, wrap around a reception, who was a little startled I was running around her with the camera, and then ran back to him, and he started shaking a little bit. And he says, I need the director right now, and we need to go to the conference room right now. And my one shot turned into 100 hours of operating in 1 week. But it's for me, it's to see the excitement in a director's eyes, the excitement in a DP's eyes, and the creativity they had, and the ability to do the shots they thought of. I have a DP that we thought of a shot 18 years ago. I called him up and said, that shot we thought of 18 years ago, we can do that now. Yeah. And he went, no. And I said, yeah, let's go test it out in the parking lot, and we'll go do the shot. And we ended up doing it on a commercial. But it was one of those things where that's fun for me now. It's a reinvigorating for me in my job to see excitement in people's eyes again, who DPs and directors who have become mundane and become bored with their craft. And now to say, look, all those things you dream of are now possible. And that's where the excitement and fun comes for me. Just say for one brief shot we had done, we were in for a Nike commercial with Kobe Bryant, and the director DP, Vincent LaForêt, who's really tied with the MoVI, wanted to do this sweeping shot of Kobe in the court. And we're trying to figure out how to pull this off. And so I went to the grip and I said, well, just give me 200-foot pieces of rope off of a pulley system up there and a tow line. And so we pulled the camera all the way to the ceiling of the sports arena, and then it did it at 120 frames and just let go of the camera. And sweeps it all the way in over the basket, right into Kobe dribbling the ball up the court. There's no other way you could accomplish it in that area, in that space, in that big wide of a shot. And
For the money. Yeah.
for the money.
Yeah.
It was for the money.
Yeah.
Absolutely for the money.
What camera were you using?
That was the Epic. We were doing Epic on that one.
A small camera.
Small camera. But now we've done F55s, and I just did a feature with the F55s and Primos, as we were talking earlier. And
Well, one thing, if I may interrupt.
absolutely.
Let's do a little history lesson. Let's go back 100 plus years ago.
I don't know if we have time for 100 plus years of
Yeah.
history.
I was told there'd be no math.
In a silent era,
Yeah.
they moved the camera a lot, especially right before sound really came in. See all the stuff Fritz Lang was doing, in Germany. They were moving the camera a lot, doing a lot of interesting things because the cameras were small and portable. The Akeley, gyros,
They were loud as heck, who
camera.
cared? Yeah, they just go.
Sound came in. Cameras got big because they needed to be blimped. And that, I think, set back things for a good 50 plus years until you get to, when the 2Cs, when
smaller.
cameras started getting smaller.
Yeah.
Cameras started getting smaller. And we're, even just a few years ago, there were, the Arri LT or, these, I hate to say it, well, the 235, that's a better example of what I was
yeah,
going to
really
use.
good small
Great camera, small, you could put things where they could never go, do rigs, all that kind of thing. Then HD came in, cameras got big again, and we're all complaining about, oh my God, this thing's huge, this thing's heavy.
It's
Well,
coming right back down again, right?
yeah, but it didn't take 50 years.
Yeah.
Now looking at the what Aeroflex has inside, you guys are in a really good spot now.
Yeah.
You
It's a good
you
time
guys can
a lot of fun
can
stuff
do
to
a
play
lot
with.
of things that Charles, Richard, and I could never have even dreamed about doing even 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So the technology has really helped filmmaking, and the price point has really helped filmmaking.
Well, on that note, then, the history and the future, what do we think about? And I want to transition right into aerial now, and think that's part of the future for all of us in some way, whether we like it or not. It's going to be part of that aerial and in that sort of, as you said, above the crane area, which I think is where we start talking about UAVs. Maybe we'll call them drones, and we should bring up the team. But Chris, what do you think? What do you see? Where is this going? Where from a young filmmaker's perspective? Where do you, and we'll come back around from all your perspectives, but I want to, where do you think this technology, the tools that we've been talking about is going to develop into, at least terrestrially, and then into the atmosphere?
Yeah, aerial I think is a great perspective. There's really no other way to get those types of high up shots, whether it be from a helicopter using shot over or Cineflex type system or just an aerial drone. A lot of the bigger budget productions have that budget set aside for aerial crews, and it'll be interesting to see what the FAA does, in fact, do with their whole legalities and all these drone operators, everyone buying a Phantom and shooting aerial video. I think I personally I invested in an aerial system and I started to fly, and then it was just too much of a liability for me. You see these videos of flip of death, and then you see it just go out of range and, crash into a side of a building. And when you're mounting like an Epic or something that's beefy on a huge octocopter or whatever, that hits somebody or something, it's, man.
Well, on that note, we should probably invite our friends from the SOAC.
On that note.
Because I think they have interesting perspective on this whole thing and what's been done and what's been done for regulation, and also what's on the direction of this. They're trying to sort of bridge this gap. And Robert and Gus, if you want to come up, and maybe we can I don't know how we're going to fit everybody up there, so maybe we can just sort of shuffle around a little bit. But
Should we go down, or
yeah, why don't we just? You mind? Why don't we just? Yeah, there you go. Look up on it.
How many we got coming up?
Just these three gentlemen. So these guys. Yeah, chill out there. We'll share some mics. Yeah, perfect.
We're going to sing some gospel in a second, too.
Yeah, and we'll sing. We have a little. So I want to introduce while we're all here because I think this is an interesting. This is an area that I think we're all interested in from both. The sort of safety side of it, obviously, but also, I mean, hey, the shots are really great, and that's why we're all really excited about it. What you can do with this for the money, is very impressive. But so the SOAC, Society of Aerial Cinematographers, is just recently formed, and they're trying to really help put this all together. And I thought it would be great to have you guys all kind of here and talking about this sort of thing. So let me introduce Robert Rodriguez, who actually works at Technicolor doing post, but he's deep in this world. I don't want to get one's name exactly right. So Gus Calderon from IsisCopter, right? So and please maybe we can do a little explain what we do here. And Lucien Miller from Innovative Designs, and these guys are in it from the manufacturing side in terms of motors and all that, but also in it in the sense of being heavily connected to the FAA, knowing this. They're basically trying to bridge this gap for all of us. And I just wanted to hear you guys' opinions on how this is going and taking Chris's comments into consideration. Hey, that's a very common comment, isn't it, when you say?
No, absolutely. It's we agree with everything you guys said on the panel. And I think that what you were talking about, too, with the safety. I'm sorry, can you guys hear me okay? With the safety and concerns, the flip of death and the things, I know exactly what you're talking about on there. So a lot of what we do is we are looking to advocate and promote the safe and responsible use of multi-rotors in production. And we're going through things here where we are working closely with production companies, with studios, with individuals, and we have Steadicam operators, DP cinematographers, 680, and everyone in our organization as well, that are all interested in the same thing. So we really have a difficult time with the people that you pointed out so perfectly that are picking up the Phantoms, and suddenly they're a cinematographer. They've got the credit card, they've got the credit, they go out there and they can buy this and afford it. Does not make them a cinematographer, doesn't give them the right to be on set.
Doesn't make them a pilot either.
Not at all, yeah. But in terms of the what's going on with the FAA and that sort of thing, I don't know if you want to jump right into that, but it came up, and I think you guys could speak a little bit better to it. But I don't know if you guys heard recently, it was just last month, September 25th, I believe, it was 6 of the 7 companies that filed for the exemption with the FAA were granted that exemption. And I don't know what's happening with the 7th, but out of those 6, there's still a long way until they can fly. So it's not just they got the exemption, the ruling, and they're out in the air in production. There's still a lot going on.
Can you explain what the exemption is and why you guys were grounded for people that don't know?
Sure. Gus, do you want to explain the exemption?
Oh, sure. So basically,
Because
sure, I can help explain that. Gus Calderon, by the way, and I've been an FAA certified commercial pilot for 20 years. Owned and operated an air charter company, so I worked with the FAA for a long time. Basically, what these 6 did was they applied to the FAA for an exemption to the rules in order to be able to operate unmanned aircraft commercially. And they were granted, as Robert said, they were granted this exemption. However, they were granted this exemption with a list of 35 conditions that they must meet prior to operating. Now, I have studied this list, and it is extensive. In fact, what they've basically done is made a lot of the requirements that are in place for manned aircraft be applicable to these operators of unmanned aircraft for reasons of safety and as for the points that you raised. Now, that's a huge hurdle for a lot of people to overcome because most people do not have professional aviation backgrounds like I do or some other people. So it's going to be very difficult for a lot of companies to be able to meet those requirements. But the FAA, they don't really care how difficult it is. It's their job to protect the airspace and protect people's safety. So basically what we're trying to do is help educate and teach people about how they can operate more safely, use a lot of what we've learned in full-scale aviation, aeronautical decision-making, all the training that we've had, bring that to the world of unmanned aircraft. So that's what we're trying to do so that everybody can operate more safely. We don't have any incidents or problems. That's what we're trying to do. Do you want to add anything, Lucien?
Both Gus and I sit on the board with the Academy of Model Aeronautics, which is the governing body over radio-controlled model aircraft, which is where all of these multi-rotor aircraft originally stemmed from. And people saw the technology and thought, hey, this would be great for, taking movies from. And so we have been working with the council, directly with the FAA for almost a year now, to try and develop a set of regulations that the FAA will be happy with, because right now the AMA is the community organizational group that the FAA accepts their authority to self-regulate the radio-controlled hobby industry. And we've had a relatively spotless career for, what has it been, 78 years now. So it's working really, really well. And the thing that we're trying to do, and I say this all the time, is we're trying to keep the here, hold my beer and watch this crowd out of the aerial cinematography business when they run down to the hobby shop and buy a Papert drone or a DJI Phantom and think that they're going to go, become the next Martin Scorsese and or do the next Blair Witch project, on $100 or $700 investment. And so the people need to understand that this has to be done with safety as the utmost consideration. And the last thing that any of us want to see is a 10-pound drone getting sucked into the engine of a 737 coming in on final approach to Burbank Airport and ruin a bunch of people's day. And in getting a set of guidelines set up so that the operators essentially have the knowledge equivalency of a commercial pilot's license to understand airspace, to understand where they can and can't fly, who they have to talk to, what exemptions they got to get, and what NOTAMs they got to put out, and all this other stuff that people like Gus and myself, backing up a little bit, I'm also a commercial pilot, been a pilot for 30 years, and so, we kind of take this stuff for granted because it's second nature for us, but most of these people out there, they just don't even have a concept of it. And this is part of what we're trying to do with the SOAC, is to develop a training curriculum that dovetails in with the AMA and the FAA and the 600 union and gets everybody talking on the same page with the same set of regulations so that everybody is doing stuff correctly and safely and doesn't create any hazards to general or commercial aviation, and at the same time maintains a safe operational aspect, so we don't drop a quadcopter on Tom Cruise's head, even though some people out there would probably like to see that. It's just we just want to make sure that everything that's done on set is done safely, and that you're able to get that shot that the director of photography is looking for, and be able to do it in a way that is as cost effective as possible and as safe as possible.
Well, I think that's very interesting, and I really appreciate that, because I think the idea here, as we all said, is to make it a tool, make it into a tool that you can use in a way, and have people know how to use it in a way that it's effective and not a scary thing and not a dangerous thing, so it can just be part of the vocabulary, as Charles said. And I mean, to me, if you can get there, then it becomes something much more legitimate. And I mean, is that what you're really after here? I mean,
it becomes the next flying Steadicam, is essentially what it's going to become. And it's going to be able to give you those shots where, like, you can't chase a taxi cab down a narrow alley in New York City with a Bell, 412 helicopter. It's just not going to happen. But if you've got a multi-rotor aircraft that's only got a 4-foot, rotor span, and you can follow the action right down the roof of a car, down an alley or down a street or something, you can get those epic shots that people are looking for, and do it at about 1% of the budget that you'd spend, and you take essentially all of the hazard and danger away of getting, real full-scale helicopters operating in close proximity to not only buildings, but the set and the crew and the actors and everything else.
That's really interesting. You want to add to that at all? I mean, I could go on, but please.
No, anybody have any specific questions about?
What kind of cameras? How heavy?
How big are you getting?
There are guys flying reds right now. I mean, a lot of guys.
I've seen an Alexa. I've seen an Alexa on
Everything
one.
from a GoPro to a Red Epic, you know?
Yeah, Alexa.
Everything in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Pretty
what
much
peop-
any of the standard cameras that you use in production. So including, there was a show that we just, at the SMPTE event actually recently, that we showed footage from Daydreams of Dubai, which was a stereoscopic. So that was 2 reds, carbon fiber bodies flying.
What about an Alexa or an
F-55 lends itself pretty well because of the shape of it. It's a bit more compact. You'd never get an F-65 up there.
Yeah.
But with the F-55, the new smaller body area Alexas like the XTs and that more than likely. But I haven't really seen anyone put a standard full-size Alexa up there. I think that's the one camera that people just really sort of love and would hate to see come down. People are a little bit more...
I love it too. I love it too much to bring it.
Yeah, but the most popular cameras that go up there obviously are the DSLRs. So you've got the 5D Mark III, the Canon series that are up there, the Canon line of cameras. The GH4 is super popular now because of UHD and 4K.
which is great, but on the productions that I usually work on, post usually says don't use that.
Right.
Or try not to use that, especially if it's going for a theatrical, type release.
Right, he's saying that on productions that he's worked on that most people, are pushing them against using the small point and shoots, the GoPros, the DSLRs. But what we find is for these shots, because of what Lucien pointed out with the budgets, people are out there and they're getting the aerial footage that they really don't have the budget for, so they can't go full scale. They're pulling this out and they're going with the small multi-rotors and they're getting the footage and it matches. They're getting small sort of establishing shots. You're never going to get anything where people's dialogue is important. They're noisy. They're there. You can't get up close. So if you expect to walk down the beach and follow 2 kids talking about something, be prepared to loop it. It's never going to work. But for the shots that they're used for, the GoPros are fine in a lot of cases. Really, the GH4 has become the new standard because it's so light and you put that 14 millimeter on there, it's fantastic.
Black Magic.
The new, right, exactly, the Blackmagic pocket cameras, the Cinemacams that they have out there with the 2K and HD, but they work really, really well. What I do want to point out, though, is not to take away, and you guys drove this point home a lot, we never tell people to use these systems when you can get the shot traditionally. Use the cranes, use the dollies, use the Steadicams. Don't go out there and just use this just because it's a cool toy. The same way that they're talking about, if you can get a better shot by setting up the rigging and going through that versus a Steadicam, use it. It's all about the cinematic experience and expression and telling the story, and if it fits, perfect. If it doesn't, use traditional methods. There's no reason. The producer will find another way to justify that cost for taking it home later, right?
Yeah,
Well, okay. So on that note, aerial future. I like talking about this stuff because I keep seeing these crazy gadgets online. It's just a little off topic maybe, but I saw this one. I know you saw it. The guy has a watch and the watch flies away. Did you see this thing? So that's take a photo of yourself. But I mean, this self-chase. I mean, are we all going to have mini helicopters chasing us around for reality TV in the next year or two? What's going to happen? I just want you to throw it out. What do you think is going to happen in the aerial world? Is this going to explode or is it going to calm down? What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation about what's going on, and there's a lot of dreaming that's not really matching up with reality right now. And so a lot of these projects that are being proposed right now may not even come to fruition. But what I think may happen, some other developments may occur that we have not even thought of. I've always believed that. I believe that what we're going to see in 5 years, I cannot predict right now. I don't think anybody of us can because the technology is changing so much and so rapidly. But we're really seeing fantastic advancements in the multi-rotors. As the one issue we're talking about with the cameras and the larger cameras is that what happens with, you've got a payload limit. I mean, you start getting over 20 pounds. Most of these systems are battery powered, so that's going to reduce the flight time. So we're going to see improvements in batteries over the next couple of years that none of us even anticipated. So that could change a lot of the dynamic and the power output of these systems. So that's going to change the capability. Maybe it'll be possible to lift larger and heavier cameras in 5 years that we just couldn't even imagine. And that's the other thing is cameras are getting exactly and
the other thing you're going to see is camera manufacturers making aerial versions of their cameras that don't have viewfinders on them. It's just the image sensor, a place to strap a lens on, a place to put a memory card, and a bracket to put it on there, because that's all you need. You don't have to haul the camera up. You just got to get the image sensor up and a place to store the data.
I think that's called the Canon C-Series, isn't it?
And,
Just checking.
yeah, and going back to what Gus was saying, there's companies out right now like 3D Robotics that Chris Anderson owns, who used to be the editor of Wired magazine. He left that position to head up 3D Robotics, and he just took on a new business partner, somebody you guys might have heard of, a guy by the name of Richard Branson. Is involved with them now. And they foresee a day when the flying camera is like the family pet. I mean, this is something that Chris Anderson said at the AMA event last year, to where you'll take this to your soccer game and you put a little, like a transponder, like your little key fob for your car in your kid's back pocket when he's playing a soccer game, and it will take off and fly around and follow your kid, 50 feet up in the air, and follow him around and videotape his whole soccer game, and then land, and you take it home and you play it for grandma when you get home. I mean, that's the kind of advancement they're looking at in this technology, as soon as 5 years down the road.
Yeah, and I maybe, right? I don't know. I think it's, outside. That's getting outside the cinematic application, obviously, but I think it's all going to impact us. It always does. Whatever happens there happens in our world, and that's what I think. It's interesting. I think it's very interesting. I think we all watching it and to see what's going to happen. So we're actually kind of out of time, but let's do a couple of cute questions for the whole group. If we want to just. Yeah, go ahead. Just shout it out there. No problem. We'll repeat.
Actually, it was a question sort of related to that. I mean, what's happening to you guys is really good. Experienced pilots actually running this stuff. That's not what's actually happening out there. You've got a whole bunch of guys that don't know what they're doing. They're running quadcopters up and down narrow hallways to get some shot as a guy's doing tricks on his skateboard. What do we do about all of that stuff? Because that's going to affect the actual cinematic use of this stuff.
So I'll repeat the question just for the cameras, I guess, so we can hear. But what we're going to do about they're not pilots. The people who are using these aren't pilots. They're people that bought a helicopter and are using it, and maybe in the hallway with the guy on a skateboard, as you said. So what is that? How do you take that? How do you change that?
Well, that's a very, very good question, and it's a huge problem. Honestly, the FAA is, from what I'm reading, they are looking at ways to train and inform law enforcement, actually, about a lot of the use of these unmanned aircraft. So they're aware of this, because in certain situations outside of the filming arena, this could be hazardous, and I'm sure you guys read in the news stories of where these copters are used inappropriately over crowds. So there's going to be a significantly more enforcement by local law enforcement and other authorities coming down the road as this technology progresses.
So all the more need for a trained person who actually uses it. Okay, that sounds important now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A little extra on that is it's technology. Unfortunately, it's the nature of technology. As technology is getting better and better, it's also the price is coming down, and it's a lot more obtainable to everyone. So almost anyone can walk into now. There's hobby shops all around here, and I know that after our last event, Andrew went out there and took advantage of that as well. But
I bought a helicopter. It's a very small one, though. It doesn't have a camera on it.
Yeah, and good thing for him, parts are cheap. But a lot of it just means that as you're getting it more and more in the hands of it, it's unfair to blame DJI, for example, or any of the manufacturers that are out there for what people are doing with their multi-rotors. They're all over the news. You guys have seen the wedding videos where it bounced into the groom's head. Event videographers are using it. People are going out there buying them, untrained, out of the box. They believe they fly themselves. And it's super bad publicity for everything that we're doing and what we're going for. They're doing the exact opposite. So that's where we're trying to help out and just sort of make sure that anyone that's looking to do this successfully has an outlet or an outreach for us.
Please.
I have a question. I'm also a pilot, and my biggest fear as a pilot is seeing these things flying all around controlled airspace that goes down to the surface. So how is this going to be addressed? And how is this going to be coordinated with air traffic control?
Right, that's being developed by a number of companies right now, and I believe sense and avoid technology, I don't know if you're familiar with ADS-B, but essentially the position and location of these multi-rotors or drones, unmanned aircraft, will be broadcast to whomever, to air traffic control, to people on the ground, so that people are aware of it. But I have similar concerns as you do. Being a pilot, I own and operate my own aircraft. So I do believe that there are efforts underway right now to prevent that from becoming real problems in the future.
I'm
Absolutely.
just picturing somebody flying it around Van Nuys, approach path or Santa Monica. I mean, somebody trying to get some cool shots of airplanes coming in. Just some, guy with a beer, watch this. Let's get
Right, that's
That's
true.
a big concern.
It is.
Run into a Gulf Stream or something.
Right, absolutely. There's some new flight controllers out there that have limits on them, and they can actually program the proximity to the aircraft, to the airport that it can fly, the altitude. So there's some safety features that are starting to be implemented and integrated into the systems right now as well.
Right. Michael Curran was flying one at a demonstration we did for the League of Women Voters on Thursday, and he has a Phantom 2 with the newest firmware upgrade. Well, we had it at a restaurant that's literally right across the street from San Diego's International Airport. And he took off and he was trying to fly it, and it wouldn't go over 15 feet high, and he thought his battery is dead. He's like, what the hell's going on with this thing? And then he realized they have a new mapping system, and because these things have GPS in them, if they're within 5 miles of Class B airspace, they won't go over 15 feet off the ground.
It's really interesting.
That's the new DJI products have implemented that. They've taken all the TCA charts and they've implemented them into their firmware in mapping. So if they're within the boundaries of the controlled airspace, it goes all the way to the ground. Well, it depends on where it is and everything else. But for right now, it's just the controlled airspace that goes down all the way to the ground around the busy airports. They've mapped that into the firmware of these things, so they won't go over 15 feet high, and they figure that's low enough that there's no airplane going to be hitting them.
So I asked this to the group to end the discussion here because we're just out of time now. Please all comment. Do we see this becoming part of the vocabulary in the future, or we see it as being more pushing it beyond because of these things and these tools that are happening? We see it becoming part of that. Maybe this is. And then,
I've used them. Well,
go ahead, please.
For body of proof, we brought in an unmanned. What are you guys calling them?
UAV, right? Yeah.
UAV?
UAV, but we call them multi-rotors because it's anything but drones.
I think
exactly.
Robert, you called it a toy helicopter.
Yeah. But
really, when you
unmanned
come down to it, it's a toy helicopter.
It's a toy helicopter. Let's just call it that.
We probably broke some federal regulations, but we're down the harbor and we got a shot. It was a great shot. These guys, a bunch of containers, and it really told the story. Unfortunately, they didn't use that shot in the final cut, but they did use some other really pretty looking shots we probably could not have gotten with a rotary aircraft. And I do see these things starting to be a lot, more used for like television shows or independent features. Definitely the price point is there. And like any other tool, you're going to start seeing these help tell the story more and more, and a lot sooner rather than later.
Actually, I used it for Key and Peele last season, and there was people came out of the woodwork to say, hey, my buddy's got a Phantom, maybe we can use that. A lot of suggestions came in and I said, no, I'm going to find the guys that know how to do this, have been doing it right, and I ended up with one of the companies that's one of the 6 that's gotten, through that initial FAA stuff, and they did an amazing job. And I was really glad that I had the right people behind it because I kept saying, "Can we?" And I was actually directing this smaller unit. I said, "Can we do this? Can we do this?" And the answer was, "Yes, we can do that. No, we can't do that." Whereas I know that if it had been someone less experienced, they would have said, "Let's just try it." And our last shot was skimming low over water. And I said, how low can you push it? How far? And they said, the further away it is, the less close to the water I want to get to be comfortable, which was the right answer that I was much more comfortable hearing. And we got great shots. Everyone was happy. But it wasn't dirt cheap. But that's okay because you pay for experience, and I can certainly respect that. And ultimately, I found out that company is one of the right companies to go with, because they knew what they were doing.
Anybody other comments, guys? We have a couple questions in the back, and I think we have 2 questions, then we have to cut it off for real. You, sir.
I've actually been a model pilot for many years, and I actually fly out of Holloway Air Force right by Van Nuys Airport. One of my main questions, when you start talking about the FAA and the AMA and them all getting together, and you've also talked about law enforcement, training them to know the difference. Is there any kind of program where you're going to now start licenses or just some sort of training, and you can say, hey, I'm authorized, I'm licensed, I've had training, something that differentiates a professional from an amateur who, like you said, has the credit.
That's one of the things that we're currently working on with the SOAC through the AMA and the FAA. We're in the process of developing a training curriculum where you will actually get what you could call a UAV operator's permit. It will be similar to a pilot's license, and you will go through a checkout process just like getting a pilot's license to do it. And you will be covered on, like in the AMA right now, there's special exemptions for turbine waivers for guys that fly jet-powered airplanes and large aircraft waivers for guys that fly over 55 pound. They're going to create another subcategory like that called UAV operator within the FAA, and you will be able to get certified to do that, and you will actually and we're not quite sure exactly if you're going to have a full-fledged pilot's license, or just take like the ground school of a commercial pilot's license plus an applicable amount of actual flight. We don't, like people like Gus and I that have been flying radio-controlled airplanes for over 30 years. We've got thousands of hours of experience already, so it's not an issue for us. But somebody that's just wanting to get into this, to get 500 hours of training under their belt, it would take them a couple of years to do that. So we're ironing out all the details, but there will soon be an organization and a training curriculum and a program and a certification process that will do exactly what you're looking for.
Right. So last question right here at the front.
You guys mentioned using those in Dubai. Is other country regulating this as aggressively as the United States, or is it case-by-case situation?
Other countries?
Yeah, there actually are a lot of other countries that are far ahead of the United States right now. And yeah, Canada and Australia in particular, they already have regulations in place. So they're actually ahead. There are a number of European countries that already have approved commercial operations. So hopefully the FAA will kind of get to work and provide us with a full set of regulations very, very soon. We're looking forward to that.
All right, guys. Let's take our panel. That's it. Thanks, guys, so much. I really appreciate it.